Good evening and welcome to the Daily News Roundup. I am Abigail Smythe. Among the stories in this evening's newscast, the Prime Minister declares states of public emergency in several parishes. Man seen in viral video harassing and intimidating taxi passengers arrested and charged. Member of Parliament Philip Paulwell to be charged in relation to loss of licensed firearm. Westmoreland woman dead, her common-law husband in custody. New health center coming to Ocho St. Anne. In business, small businesses and entrepreneurs can now access millions in grants through Ignite program. In the region, Inter-American Development Bank approves $60 million grant to improve food security in Haiti. Further overseas, world population hits 8 billion, creating more hardships. And in sports, Reggae girls suffer defeat to Paraguay in second friendly international series. Now for the news in detail. Following the increase in criminal activities across the island, Prime Minister Andrew Holness declared a state of public emergency in several parishes Tuesday morning.
This morning, His Excellency, the Governor General, the Most Honorable Sir Patrick Allen, declared a state of public emergency in the parishes of Clarendon, St. Catherine, and specified areas in the parishes of Kingston and St. Andrew, and a state of public emergency as well in the parishes of St. James, Westmoreland, and Hanover.
Mr. Holness says there are two separate declarations, one being the Southern Crescent and the other the Western Tri-parishes. He adds that the government acted on advice of the security chiefs to advise the Governor General that states of public emergency were needed in these specific areas, especially as we approach the Christmas season.
We have seen an increase in criminal activities in these areas, and indeed a threat to property and, in some instances, public disorder. It is important to note that we are also approaching the Christmas season. And this will require the deployment of even greater resources, sometimes resources that our security forces do not have. And therefore, the government has to act in a preemptive way. The government has to act in such a way as to maximize the resources that we have to save lives and property from the threats that exist.
Commissioner of Police Major General Anthony Anderson notes that over the last 6 months, there has been a significant increase in murders on the island. As at November 13, there are 1,360 murders in Jamaica, a 6.8% increase when compared to the same period last year. He says the main drivers of these violent crimes are gang violence, which accounts for 71% of all murders, and interpersonal conflicts, which account for another 16% of all murders. The commissioner states that they will be targeting guns, gangs, and gunmen who are the chief architects of the sort of violence we're seeing in the society. He asserts that the police force will continue in their efforts to root out criminals. There was a heated exchange over Amoy Leon Issa's privacy rights in the St. James Parish Court on Monday as investigations continue into the investigation of her son Gabriel King's murder. The hearing was in relation to Issa's refusal to grant the police access to her cell phone after they made a production order. Attorney-at-law Chukwemeka Cameron, who represented Issa, had a testy back and forth with Parish Judge Sasha Ashley as he argued that his client, who was not present in court, was being disadvantaged by the police's order. Cameron told the court that Section 21 of the Cybercrimes Act acknowledges that any search of any computer device is a restriction on one's right to privacy. In recognizing that it is a restriction of one's right to privacy and in respect of Ms. Issa's right to privacy, the legislation has prescribed certain safeguards that the court must consider. The attorney added that it prescribes what steps the state must put in place before any restriction of the client's right to privacy is restricted. The legislation has not left it up to any court to determine what those safeguards should be. In response, a visibly unamused Ashley ordered that Cameron and the attorney representing the Jamaica Constabulary Force come to an agreement on the terms of the phone search. The court was informed that there had been previous discussions in which expectations were outlined concerning Issa's compliance with the order. Following an in-chamber meeting with the attorneys, the hearing was set to continue on November 18. The man seen in a video circulating on social media harassing and intimidating passengers in a taxi as part of a strike on Monday has been arrested and charged.
Watch out, watch out, watch out. Come on, passengers. You're on a lift for you on the man. So on the man.
He is a 32-year-old Ramon Silveira who gave his occupation as a professional clown and is of Kellyman Terrace, Kingston 11. He is charged with assault at common law, disorderly conduct, and indecent language. He is to appear before the Kingston and St. Andrew Parish Court on January 12, 2023. Monday was day one of the planned 3-day strike by public transport operators demanding an amnesty from the government for payment of their outstanding tickets. However, the government has rejected the demand. The Office of the Prime Minister, OPM, says the government will give no support for lawlessness and disorder. It says the government stands with all well-thinking Jamaicans who have expressed a strong aversion to those actions. The OPM says the government is undertaking the internal processes needed to effectively implement and enforce the new regime under the Road Traffic Act 2018 and its 2022 regulations in order to secure greater accountability and discipline on the roads. The Office of the Prime Minister asserts that the government will not relent in its efforts to build a better transport sector and is calling on law-abiding owners and operators to continue providing their services to the public. A man is now in police custody following a domestic dispute that led to the death of his common-law wife in Westmoreland Sunday night. The deceased has been identified as 35-year-old craft vendor Venetia Hilton of Sheffield Retreat District in the parish. Reports from the Westmoreland police are that at 2:25 a.m., the common-law husband went to the Negril police station and reported that he and his common-law wife and her 2 children were at home when they had a dispute over her attending a party. The common-law husband said a fight ensued between him and his partner, and he used his fist to hit her in the face and she fell to the ground, hitting her head. The report states that on arrival of the police, the garage grill along with the back door were discovered opened. Hilton's lifeless body was seen face down in a pool of blood on the bedroom floor with what appeared to be marks of violence on her back and head. She was transported to the Savannah Lamar Hospital where she was pronounced dead. Gunmen struck in downtown Kingston on Saturday, leaving 2 men dead. The deceased have been identified as 61-year-old Neville Tate of West Bay or Garveymead in Portmore St. Catherine and 43-year-old Michael James, a businessman of Luke Lane, Kingston. The men were fatally shot at a juice outlet along Luke Lane. Reports are that about 8 o'clock, Mr. James and Mr. Tate were at the juice outlet when 2 armed men walked up and opened fire at them. Mr. Tate died on the spot while Mr. James died while receiving treatment at the Kingston Public Hospital. No motive has been established for the killings. Robberies and murders are up in St. Anne, but the police have reaped some success in nabbing individuals suspected of being involved in those crimes. Among those arrested are bikers and thieves disguised as taxi operators who were terrorizing passengers traversing the Sentence Bay to Outer Wears route. Residents have complained of being robbed by cab drivers who divert from the route and then leave them stranded in unfamiliar locations. Senior Superintendent of Police in the parish, Dwight Powell, says they have recorded some 84 robberies compared to 40 last year, and murders have also increased, with 55 so far this year compared to 40 for the corresponding period last year. He says these increases are attributed to domestic situations. He is seeking to assure residents that the police are doing what is necessary to mitigate those conflicts. He notes that they are making tremendous progress with the crime-solving initiative in the parish. The governing Jamaica Labour Party, JLP, is blaming the previous administration, the opposition People's National Party, PNP, for the rise in criminality. National Security Minister Dr. Horace Chang says while the PNP was in government, they gave power to criminals by failing to support the police. Dr. Chang argues that the previous administration underfunded the security forces, which resulted in criminal elements becoming emboldened. He laments that the state is now grappling with a generation of criminals who have been acting with impunity. He adds that it will take some time for a reversal of the effects of previous policies. Dr. Chang notes that the Andrew Holness-led government has ensured that the country's crime fighters are equipped to challenge criminals and provide public safety. Meanwhile, the PNP has reacted to the claims. In a statement released on Monday, the PNP described Dr. Chang's statement as a pathetic attempt to find another excuse for his failed performance as a Minister of National Security. The opposition says the JLP administration's ineffective attempt at militarizing policing in Jamaica through the routine use of states of emergency actually makes a strong case for the advocates of a more balanced approach to public safety. It is understood that Member of Parliament for East Kingston and Port Royal, Philip Paulwell, is to be charged in relation to the loss of his licensed firearm in July this year. He is to be charged with losing a firearm through negligence. It's understood that the weapon was reported stolen to the police and the Firearm Licensing Authority by Mr. Paulwell earlier this year. Mr. Paulwell says one evening in early July he was heading home, having dropped home his close protection officer when he had to make an emergency stop in the Upper St. Andrew community of Hope Pastures. He says he stopped for less than 8 minutes, and upon returning to his vehicle, he saw his back window smashed. He then realized that the bag which had his pouch with his firearm was gone. Mr. Paulwell says the firearm is very old, as he has had it for more than 20 years. Mr. Paulwell is appealing to the person who stole his licensed firearm to use the present gun amnesty to hand it over to the police. A Montego Bay-based attorney at law has been charged with fraud. Fraud squad detectives charged Maurice McCurdy on Monday with fraudulent conversion following allegations that he defrauded one of his clients of millions of dollars in a real estate deal. It is understood that the attorney sold a property for one of his clients for more than $5 million. It is alleged that he failed to hand over $800,000 to the client following the sale. A police report was filed, and following an investigation, Mr. McCurdy was arrested and charged. He has been released on station bail to answer to the charges in court. There are concerns being raised yet again about the poor water quality at a number of water facilities operated by the St. Mary Municipal Corporation. The issue was brought to the fore by the Chief Public Health Inspector for St. Mary, Rupert Stevens, at a recent meeting of the St. Mary Municipal Corporation. Mr. Stevens shared his findings arising from a drinking water analysis undertaken in October, which showed that several facilities which supply potable water across St. Mary contained traces of bacteria. He said 7 samples were collected and all 7 were deemed bacteriologically unsafe. The Chief Public Health Inspector also revealed that a total of 21 chlorine residual checks were undertaken. Further analysis by the St. Mary Health Department revealed that of 11 of the water supply locations operated by the St. Mary Municipal Corporation, only one was deemed satisfactory. Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says a new health center valued at over $200 million is coming to the resort town of Ocho Rios in St. Anne. Dr. Tufton says the architectural drawing is now being finalized, and construction is expected to begin next year on lands in Pineapple Place. The Ocho Rios Health Center is one of 28 in St. Anne and is said to be too small to adequately house services needed by the communities it serves. It is one of the busiest facilities, serving over 25,000 residents in 2021 from a service area that includes Ocho Rios, Buckfield, Mansfield Heights, Parrytown, Great Pond, Beechertown, Colgate, among others. The health minister says the new health center is to be built on acreage 4 times the size of the current facility and will offer several additional services, including dentistry. He says the health center is to be constructed under the IDB GOJ Improving Health Resilience Program, which includes the upgrade of other health facilities in St. Anne. Opposition spokesman on education, Senator Damian Crawford, is urging the government to urgently implement new initiatives suggested by the People's National Party to tackle violence and indiscipline in schools. Crawford says the government should link the Program of Advancement through Health and Education PATH to parental involvement, including participation in Parent-Teacher Association PTA activities. He is calling for schools to be equipped with closed-circuit cameras and for a school eye that is synonymous with the government's Jamaica Eye program to monitor compounds and deter possible acts of violence. Crawford says some of the Ministry of Education's proposals to tackle the problem were inadequate and indicate a lack of creativity and energy in the ministry and a general misunderstanding of the circumstances surrounding the upsurge in criminal activities. He says searching students at school gates with handheld metal detectors, as suggested by the Education Minister, was inefficient. Crawford recommends that in all public primary and secondary schools, the government commission a Department of Socialization headed by a guidance counselor and staffed by guidance counselors, deans of discipline, and form teachers. He adds that formulating this department will immediately place over 40 adults under one umbrella to be trained, coordinated, organized, and deployed for the purpose of interaction, monitoring, problem solving, and consistent adult supervision inside and outside of classes. He is also recommending that form teachers be better paid, trained, and positioned as senior teachers with an additional remuneration of no less than $20,000 per month. He stated that form teachers should be trained in behavior modification and to spot depression, gangs, drug addiction, and bullying, and also to participate in adequate interventions when necessary. Senator Crawford is also suggesting that more deans of discipline be hired immediately to achieve a ratio of 1 to 600 students, or deans of discipline for lower and upper schools at both the primary and secondary levels. The opposition spokesman on education also recommends that the schools revisit their detention policies, especially for students with violent conduct, to detain such students for long-term participation in what he calls peace education and not just for short-term punishment. He says the student may also be detained for recommended participation in uniform corps such as Scouts, Cadets, or Girls Guides. Crawford is also pushing for good behavior to be rewarded, suggesting that form teachers could distribute tickets for well-behaving students to attend a monthly after-school party, for example. Also, he is calling on the private sector to engage the government so they can encourage, with the assistance of gift vouchers such as fast food vouchers, telephone cards, cafeteria vouchers, and vouchers for stores and other activities that reward good-behaving students. And in business news, Jamaican small businesses and entrepreneurs can now access up to $7 million in grants through the Innovation Grant for New Ideas to Entrepreneurship Ignite 4 program. The application window for Ignite 4 is now open and targets innovative businesses seeking to grow. The program will provide grant funding and capacity building support. The Development Bank of Jamaica (DBJ), which is spearheading the initiative, is placing strong emphasis on projects or businesses in the categories of climate change and gender, tourism and creatives, manufacturing and agriculture, and technology, software and information and communications technology. The Ignite program, first introduced in 2016, is funded under a 5-year loan agreement between the Government of Jamaica and the Inter-American Development Bank. Ignite is part of the DBJ's Boosting Innovation Growth and Entrepreneurship Ecosystem and is expanding. The program manager, Christopher Brown, says to date, the initiative has helped more than 70 micro and small enterprises to grow and scale their businesses. In the region, the Inter-American Development Bank (IDB) says it has approved a $60 million grant to improve food security and enhance the medium and long-term climate resilience of vulnerable populations in Haiti. It will also better assist displaced people and returning migrants. In a statement, the Washington-based financial institution said natural disasters, including hurricanes and earthquakes, social and political instability, and the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic have aggravated poverty and fragility, eroding the quality of life of the people of Haiti. It says an initial $40 million component of the grant offers cash transfers to provide temporary income to food insecure areas. However, to qualify for some of the transfers, the IDB says recipients must participate in community projects focused on resilience and climate change mitigation. It says the transfers will begin flowing in January next year and will benefit about 260,000 people. The IDB says a second $13 million component of the aid is designed to expand essential health services for displaced people and returning migrants and improve the continuity of these services. And on the international scene, the United Nations says the world population surged past 8 billion people on Tuesday. Rapid population growth means more people vying for scarce water resources and leaves more families facing hunger as climate change increasingly impacts crop production in many parts of the world. The upward trend threatens to leave even more people in developing countries further behind as governments struggle to provide enough classrooms and jobs for a rapidly growing number of youth, and food insecurity becomes an even more urgent problem. The countries with the fastest growing populations are Congo, Egypt, Ethiopia, Nigeria, Tanzania, Pakistan, the Philippines, and India, which is set to overtake China as the world's most populous nation next year. Experts say resource pressure will be especially daunting in African nations where populations are expected to boom. These are also among the countries most vulnerable to climate impacts and most in need of climate finance. The UN says rapid population growth makes eradicating poverty, combating hunger and malnutrition, and increasing the coverage of health and education systems more difficult. And in sports news, 5-time 100-meter world champion Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce has been named a finalist for the World Athletics 2022 Female Athlete of the Year. Fraser-Pryce is coming off a season in which she retained her 100-meter world title at the World Athletics Championships in Eugene, Oregon, with a championship record time of 10.67 seconds. World 200-meter champion Sharika Jackson, who was on the short list of nominees, did not make the final cut. The award will be presented next month. And in football, the Reggae Girls suffered a 2-1 defeat to Paraguay in the second of their 2-game friendly international series at the National Stadium on Sunday. Celsa Sandoval opened the scoring for Paraguay in the 16th minute, and the South Americans doubled their advantage in the 35th minute to go to the halftime break, leading 2-0. After missing several chances, the Jamaicans were rewarded in the 62nd minute when the referee awarded them a penalty following a handled ball. Captain Khadija Bunny Shaw converted from the spot to pull one back for the home team. Head coach Lorne Donaldson blamed a lack of energy for the team's defeat. Jamaica had beaten Paraguay 1-0 in the first game last Thursday at the Montego Bay Sports Complex. And that's it for your news roundup for today. I'm Abigail Smythe. See you next time.